If you've been in the market looking for a pair of barefoot minimalist shoes, you've probably seen the shoes just like the ones that I have here. I have a pair of Vivobarefoots, Xero Shoes, and the Whitin brand from Amazon to review today. In this video, I'm going to cover the differences between them, the pros and cons of each shoe, and why you might want to buy one over the other. I'll try my best to cut through all the fancy marketing and gimmicks and look at them for what they actually are, and also from a medical perspective. Hey guys, Dr. Michael Tang, physiotherapist here. On this channel, I do videos on health and wellness, physiotherapy related content, as well as product reviews just like this one. So if you're new here, consider subscribing. And hey, at any point in the video, you can check out the timestamps in the links in the description box below for a table of content. As a disclaimer, I have bought all these shoes with my own money to give you an unbiased and honest review of what I truly think about all these different shoes. I made another video about the whole theory behind barefoot shoes, so I'm not going to get into the technical details, but the general gist is that wearing these type of shoes allows for your foot to move a little bit closer to if you were barefoot, meaning a more natural mechanic. In doing so, it helps with improving the balance and coordination of the feet, and in some cases decreases the risk of injury to the hip, knee, and ankle chain. The other video goes a little bit more in depth into how these shoes supposedly do so, so I'll go ahead and put a link in the description box. Anyways, getting on to the three shoes that I have here, which are the Vivobarefoot Primus Lite IIIs. Comes in at roughly about $145 to $155 depending on the color. The Xero Shoes HFS for roughly $120, and the Whitin laid-back slip-on loafers for roughly $35 to $40 depending on style and color. Looking at these three shoes, what makes these shoes barefoot are the main characteristics that there's a wider toe box in the front, which is right here. There's a thin, flat rubber sole that doesn't have an elevated heel, and the material is very flexible and can twist very easily. For the sake of this particular video, just to make the video a little bit more fluid, I'm going to be referring to these as the Vivos, the Xeros, and the Whitins. When comparing the width of the toe boxes between the three shoes, the Vivo is the widest of the three, whereas the Xero and the Whitin come in roughly around the same width, at least from the outside. When you're wearing them, however, they do feel slightly different. The Whitins feel more narrow, and it was even more amplified, at least in my case, because I typically wear these shoes with toe spacers, and they essentially splay my toes out a little bit more than normal than what it is at rest. So for the Xeros and the Vivos, when I'm wearing the toe spacers, I really didn't have any trouble. But when I was wearing the Whitins, they definitely jammed my pinky toe into the lateral aspect of the shoe, and I could definitely notice it. If you're not wearing any toe spacers, or at least when I didn't wear toe spacers, I didn't really have trouble with any of the shoes. So that's just something to keep in mind. And this is also specifically for my foot. I would consider my foot to be slightly on the meatier side, but if you have narrow feet, it might not matter. Here's a quick picture of all the different type of foot styles there are. It goes without saying, if you have really wide feet, then going with a shoe that is a little bit wider is probably better than if it was narrow, obviously, right? Moving on to the materials and fit, all the shoes do feel pretty different when wearing them. When I wear the Vivos, it feels like my foot is wearing leggings, just because the material is a little bit stiffer in comparison to the Xeros and the Whitins, so it hugs my foot a little bit closer. Not uncomfortable, it's just a little bit more snug. The entire shoe is made of a leathery type of material, and this material has a little bit of stretch. I know it's hard to see on the camera, but it is there. And then there's a couple spots on the shoe where it has some plastic decorations. It really doesn't add much to it outside of the decoration aspect. Now, what I do like about it, on the top part of the shoe, there is a reinforced material where you put your foot into the shoe. And that's important for durability, because this is kind of an area where there's a lot of tension and pressure when putting on and taking off the shoe. But I have to comment on the fact that I really don't like the laces on this shoe, because they just don't stay tied when I tie them. The friction on this laces just kind of sucks, and so I would just find that these shoes keep coming untied on my day-to-day life. I guess you could always just switch out the laces for another lace, and that probably would solve the problem, but I just didn't like it. And then for those of you guys who are particularly concerned, according to the website, these shoes are sourced from recyclable materials. Now, comparing the Xeros to the Vivos, the Xeros feel a lot closer to a traditional shoe because the shoe has a little bit more structure to it, especially in the midfoot area here. I don't want you to get the wrong idea though, because this shoe is still super flexible, just like it is on the Vivos. If we're going about material-wise, it is a synthetic plastic that is similar to what you would find on a pair of Nikes. There's really not too much to say about it. It's just a synthetic plastic. I also do want to point out that on these lines here, these gray lines, these are made of reflective materials. And so at least in terms of safety, these are a little bit better, especially at night. Now I want to comment specifically for the laces. The laces are not anything special. I do like them a lot better than the Vivos, but they're not like super good. They're just better than the Vivos. And finally, getting on to the Whitins, it's a shoe that really is the most bare bones and compared to all the different shoes that I have here in the lineup. I think the best way to describe it is that it feels exactly the way that it looks, which is it's a rubber sole on the bottom and you have some cloth on the top that just sits there. The biggest advantage to this setup is that it feels really free and loose, but with all that freedom, you pretty much don't have any support from the cloth. All of the lockdown comes specifically from the laces being tied up, which becomes really noticeable when you're trying to move side to side. The cloth material does feel kind of cheap, but fortunately, the laces are really secure, which is really important since you're really not going to be getting any support from anywhere else. For my foot, I prefer the Xero shoes the most just because I like the feeling of support from the little bit of structure that the shoe provides, especially in the midfoot area. Now I know it could just be me going to what I'm used to after wearing traditional shoes for so many years, but hey, I mean, I like what I like. When it comes to the Vivos, no complaints. It's a little snug, but still very comfortable, whereas the Whitins, they're a tad bit too loose for my taste. I could see it be helpful for those who have a meatier foot than I do, but for me, it's just a tad bit too loose. For sizing of these shoes, I normally wear a size 10, and for the Vivos and the Whitins, I got a size 10. They fit very well, whereas with the Vivos, I got a 10.5 because on the website, it said that you need to go a half a size up. For me, perfect fit. So if you're gonna go with the Vivos, go a half a size up. A random side note that I wanted to say is that all these shoes are not water resistant at all. So if you live in an area where it rains often, there's pretty much going to be a 100% chance that your feet are going to get wet. So I'm just trying to save you the struggle. If you live in an area where it rains a lot, go ahead and bring some spare socks with you. Getting into the aesthetics of all the different shoes that I have here, I actually like all of them pretty equally because to me they all kind of have a different fashion occasion when they would be appropriate. I mean, just look at the shoes. They all have their own vibe to them. The Whitins, to me, they look pretty casual and appropriate for when you're walking around in public without giving it too much of a sports vibe. And the color selections available are black, white, gray, heathered look. I mean, it's just overall a very low-key shoe. Comparatively to the Vivos, in my opinion, they're a little bit more of a modern, sleek look, but slightly more sporty. It's probably best for a athleisure look. Now, unfortunately, when it comes to colors, I think there's only black and white. And then when it comes to Xeros, the Xeros, they are the most intricate of all the different designs. I think it's most appropriate for the gym since it has the most sporty look. And even the philosophy of the shoe itself follows more of a running shoe type of philosophy, similar to what you would find either in Asics or even Brooks. Now let's go over how they perform. I tested them out in a couple of different scenarios: daily wear, gym wear, and as basketball shoes. And yes, I do know that these shoes are marketed as running shoes, but I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a runner, and I was not about to change that specifically for this review. But what I will say is that I definitely would not run in the Whitins because they feel loose, whereas I probably would be okay with either the Xeros or the Vivos. For daily wear, between all the different shoes, it really doesn't matter. I think they're all about the same. But for myself specifically, since I wear these shoes with toe spacers, I would go with either the Xeros or the Vivos because they're a little bit wider than the Whitins. For the gym, when lifting weights, I like the Vivos the most just because I like the snug feel and just makes me feel a little bit more secure. But the Xeros aren't bad either. And once again, with the Whitins, it's too loose. And then I know that all three of these shoes are not basketball shoes, but I'm gonna be honest, when I'm at the gym, I see the basketball hoop, I wanna put up some shots, and so I go over there and put up some shots. And to no surprise, the Whitins are too loose for my taste, whereas the Vivos and the Xeros are okay. Traction-wise, they're all right. But make no mistake, these shoes are definitely not basketball shoes, and I wouldn't even consider thinking about playing them in any serious manner at all. But now I want to talk about the cons about the shoes, and really just barefoot shoes in general. Given that I am a PT, I can't help but look at them from a biomechanical standpoint. The very nature of these very flexible shoes is that they are not very supportive, obviously. And so meaning that they have very little to no arch support. And if you're somebody who is already dealing with arch pain, these shoes are definitely not the way to go until the arch problems have been dealt with, at least from a medical perspective. But you might be saying, Mike, I thought wearing these shoes, it would help strengthen my foot and help me get rid of all these different arch problems. And to that, I would say yes, except it really depends on where you're starting from in the first place. In terms of difficulty of these shoes on the feet, on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being the most difficult, meaning that you're on barefoot on weird terrain and all that good jazz. These shoes I would consider to be like level 5, whereas having no shoes on a normal plane would be level 8. If there is pain or a lack of control in the feet muscles, I would consider that to be level 0 or even maybe a negative number. If there's no pain, but your arches are easily collapsible, maybe that would be considered level 2 to 3. And if there's no pain and you have regular arches, maybe you would be at level 4 to 5. And then no problems with walking around on hard surfaces for like 10 minutes straight. Maybe that's level 7 to 8. And anything higher would be having strong feet and you're able to walk on all kinds of surfaces and hard or soft and uneven, all that good jazz. So really, these shoes can be worn as a transitional tool to build up the endurance, coordination, and strength of the foot, assuming that your feet are already ready to train. But they are not a substitute for actual direct feet strengthening exercises. My final thoughts on all the different shoes that I have here are that they are all pretty good in their own right. If you're looking for the utility aspect of a barefoot shoe, go with either the Vivos or the Xeros. The difference between them two, really this one's more of a snug fit comparison to the Xeros, which is closer to more of a traditional feel and even a traditional look. If you're looking to just kind of dip your feet into the world of barefoot shoes, then you can try the Whitins because they're a little bit more casual and they're the cheapest of the bunch. So it's not really a huge investment, at least financially. But whatever option you decide that you want to go with, they all should give you a pretty accurate taste for what a barefoot shoe would actually act and feel like. I personally enjoyed all the different shoes here, and I would recommend all of them, only with a slight bias towards the Vivos and the Xeros because they fit my foot a little bit better. But once again, the shoes and the products mentioned in the video are in the description box below, as well as the link to the video that I made explaining a little bit more in depth, explaining why you should even wear barefoot shoes in the first place. But anyways, that's it for this video. If you like this video, consider leaving it a like and let me know in the comments below which one you decide to go with, especially if there's any of you guys who are actually runners, because I didn't test it that way. But hopefully you guys found this video helpful, and thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.